Now, for the education system to be revived in Delhi, an expert panel was made. That expert committee has now submitted its suggestions and recommendations to the Delhi government, and that there will be a final decision taken. So what has been a part of these discussions and the study? The expert panel has recommended resuming physical teaching, learning activities for all classes in Delhi, but in a phased, organized manner. It says that in the first phase, students in higher classes should be called back for offline classes, then followed by the middle classes and finally the primary. Now the onus depends on the Delhi Disaster Management Authority and the Delhi government, and clearly, of course, Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal to take a final decision to reopen these schools in Delhi.
अभी जो दूसरे स्टेट से एक्सपीरियंसेस आए वो थोड़े से मिक्स्ड से हैं. सो अभी भी सिचुएशन के ऊपर नज़र रखे हुए हैं, बिकॉज बच्चों के साथ किसी भी तरह का हम लोग वो नहीं लेना चाहते. हम भी जल्दी से जल्दी स्कूल खोलना चाहते हैं. तो जब भी कोई इस बारे में अगला निर्णय होगा हम आपको बताएंगे.
So which are the schools, let me tell you, that have already fully or partially opened across different states? Let's begin one by one. Some of the states that have opened already. Karnataka, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh are some of the states that have decided to start opening up schools already. Students have returned to classes. Also Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, Delhi, apart from these states, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, which is also partially open and likely will open more in the month of September. There's also Punjab, Odisha and Haryana. So these are some of the schools, including Delhi, remember, where the senior classes have partially started to open. But we're talking about all classes reopening if and when the Delhi government decides. But which are the states yet to reopen? West Bengal, Kerala, Jammu and Kashmir, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, where some of the COVID cases were also spiking, remember. There's also Assam and Telangana. So these are some of the states that you can see are yet to reopen. They do not have an approval either from the parents or even the teachers, and clearly the governments think it is time not yet to reopen the schools as well. Now, what I decided today morning was to conduct an experiment. I put a question on the social media site, my profile on Twitter, asking whether parents are ready to send their children to school. Are you ready to send your child to school? What would you want the schools to be taking into consideration? What precautions should they have to encourage parents so that they can send their children to school? I got immense feedback. It was flooded with responses from concerned parents, and I want to now take you through some of those shortlisted reactions as well. For example, take a look at this. Akshay Modern told me that first and foremost priority of the schools for toddlers should be to guarantee 100% hygienic conditions and that they do not feel harassed. There was one Richard Rodrigue from Maharashtra who told me that school authorities should explain to parents about how they will maintain social distancing. Will the body temperature be checked? Can an MBBS doctor be made available as soon as possible if a child falls sick? There was also a journalist, Geeta Moza, who told us that they wish schools start functioning once again because kids have started facing health issues. Online classes are not easy. They seem to be for both the teachers and the kids. There are alternate days that must be suggested. There are reduced hours of schooling also that must be included, given as option. Let's go across. Another user, Vishwa Sharan. Vishwa Sharan also wrote to us and said that there must be an opening of schools for senior kids, which is 9 to 12th grade. There are practicals. There could be 2 days per week, different sections on different days. Take precautionary measures as per doctor guidelines. What is P. Rudro telling me? Children aged 12 to 18 should be fully vaccinated. Pandemic has not yet gone away. They will want the vaccination to come in. So these are some of the responses that we got, and clearly reflective of the fact that parents still do feel very concerned. So remember, while these reactions have come in, what is precisely the status on ground? A Delhi expert panel says that the schools can reopen in a phased manner and with precautions, but there are different states. For example, after 18 months, Karnataka have decided to resume its classes. People are going back even to schools in Telangana. Here's a report now what other states are up to in the country. How are they, with already opened schools, managing to convince parents to return as well? Take a look.
India's active COVID-19 cases are at the lowest in over 150 days. The steady decline in infections has prompted many states to finally call for opening of schools. With masks, thermal screening and other strict SOPs in place, children in many parts of the country have already ditched the screen for in-person classes. Several other states are keen on emulating from them. States that welcomed kids back to school this month include Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Uttarakhand, Maharashtra and Punjab. In Delhi, just Class 10 and Class 12 students are back in school to complete admission procedures and for practical lessons. The Delhi government's expert committee has proposed in its report that all classes should be opened and senior classes should open first in a phased manner. But the final call will be taken by the Delhi Disaster Management Authority. Uttar Pradesh, that was all set to reopen schools on August 23rd, has postponed it indefinitely. Karnataka reopened schools in districts with less than 2% COVID-19 positivity rate on Monday. Karnataka Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai visited a school in Bengaluru that saw an underwhelming 38% attendance.
The schools have started, children are happy, teachers are happy. I have asked them to take care of their COVID norms and health, and I wish them all the best. Knowledge is very important.
Kerala and West Bengal are among the states yet to reopen schools. In the absence of a vaccine for kids, parents are a worried lot. Zydus Cadilla's Zycovid-D, India's first vaccine for children, gives parents hope.
गवर्नमेंट से और सीएम से यही अपेक्षा रहेगी कि उन्होंने जल्द से जल्द इसको हर सेंटर पे देना चाहिए और उनका वैक्सीनेशन शुरू करना चाहिए ताकि आगे किसी भी तरीके का कोई लॉस ना हो सके।
थर्ड वेव में अगर बच्चों को वैक्सीन आ गया है थर्ड वेव के लिए तो कोरोना ना हो, इसके लिए तो हमें ऐसा लगता है कि बच्चों को ये वैक्सीन लेना ही चाहिए और सभी पेरेंट्स ने इसके ऊपर ध्यान देना चाहिए।
The roadmap for school reopening comes even as fears of infections among kids is looming large. In Karnataka, 242 children were infected in August first week when schools were opened. Himachal Pradesh saw 62 such infections. In Punjab, 27 kids were infected till mid-August. Experts, however, assure that there is no evidence so far to suggest COVID leads to serious disease among children. Bureau Report, India Today.
So let's go across now to the reactions that have come in. I have an amazing panel today of parents, children, and of course an experienced academician as well. I want to first introduce for the discussion Amita Mulavatal. She's the chairperson and executive director of the DLF Schools and Scholarship Programs. And we have parents with their children. For them, clearly, this discussion of whether you want to go back or not or stay is perhaps an everyday affair. I want to start with Dr. Vatal because the expert panel has told Delhi government that schools can reopen but in a phased manner. Do you think that we can take a chance, that we can have the schools being opened in the national capital, Delhi? Dr. Vatal.
Absolutely. I think it is absolutely essential that schools should open. It's been too many days, too many months with children missing education. And, we can't keep waiting for something that may happen or may about to happen. There's been a lot of learning loss. A lot of students have lost the ability to speak, to write, to even sit still. And I think it is essential for the intellectual and the physical development of children. And this is a very crucial stage between the ages of 3 and 16, where learning happens at its greatest level. And I think it is essential that if the Deputy CM has said of Delhi that the school should open, they must open, and they must open at all levels.
But there is a justified fear about COVID that could affect the children and young children there. What do you think the schools need to do to allay those concerns, which are extremely justified and understandable, that the parents face? What do you think the schools must do, at least at this point?
Firstly, I'd like to say that it's not as though parents have stopped going out with the children. I see children in the malls. I see them in the amusement parks. I see them in hill stations. I see them when we travel by air. I mean, these are far more public areas than a school would be. In fact, a school is a much safer place because there has been so much of involvement and school protocols, which are about not more than 10 children in a class, ensuring that before you open school, everything is sanitized, your exits and entrances, to ensure that when children come in, there's a staggered movement. The very fact that till now nobody's using buses and children are being dropped, that's also very important. Lesser classes, less time for children to congregate together in one place, no involvement with eating or with sharing of food. All these things are being looked at so many levels. So I think and I think the first thing a school should do before it opens is it must have a parent walk, where a group of parents belonging to the PTA or the PSG should walk around and with the principal and see whether they are comfortable. And if they are, and if they're not, then they should say what is it that they're not comfortable with. So the principal and the teachers can go forward and do more. So I would say that more is less. But then it is essential that we go forward and we take that plunge and we open schools. They've opened all over the world.
That's a good suggestion, that there can be a confidence building measure. And I want to take that to one of the parents here. Sonia Bhatia, and her daughter Kavya Bhatia is also joining me right now. Sonia, do you think it's time that you are ready to send your child to school? There have been so many months. Wouldn't you want your child to go out and join classes yet again?
Well, I'll tell you something. As a parent, of all the great mistakes I may make, the biggest mistake right now would be to be a little impatient just because things are getting tough at my end as a parent. I understand that the children are missing school. They're missing out on so many opportunities, and they're missing out on a whole lot of experience within the community and within the society, because human beings are social beings. And they need to learn from each other. They need to go out and understand how the world works. But right now, learning, missing out, going to school would be a little dangerous, because we've seen what the second wave did, and we've seen how difficult it was to contain it, and how many people had to suffer, and so many people died. I would never want to take that risk with my children. So that's my take on it. That if I have to wait a little longer, I don't mind waiting a little longer, because the safety and well-being of my child is more important for me.
So,
especially now that the vaccine is also not yet here for the children.
So if I have to wait a little longer, I'm ready to wait a little longer. I want to take a question to this class 5th student, little Kavya Bhatia. Kavya, do you miss your school friends? Do you want to head back to your classes yet again? What do you have to say?
Well, actually, I miss my school a lot, very much. I miss all the activities and all the competitions and everything. But I know that it's a very high risk to actually go to school because of the COVID-19 right now.
I think you're a very bright young girl, and you've given a very dignified response that you miss your friends, but you're not ready to take a risk. Thank you for that response, Kavya. So again to your mother, Sonia, that what do you think the government should do, or the schools should do? Should they reopen? Should they wait and watch, or give you some confidence building measure?
I think the key would be to go slow. Not to take any hasty decisions, not to, and most importantly, not to impose their decisions on the parents and the students. As it is, we're still trying to understand the way this virus works. We're still trying to understand how it is spreading, how the third wave is coming, what the Delta Plus variant is going to do. So we're not really, in a very clear position to understand how the third wave might turn out to be. It's anybody's guess right now.
Okay.
So maybe go slow. Take steps that you can, you can contain if, God forbid, things don't fall out the way we plan. Have contingency planning in place that if things do go wrong, it is already been catered for. And I think that somewhere the schools also need to understand that if the parents are a little apprehensive of sending their children, then they should understand their apprehension as well. And the students who do not want to come out, or the parents who do not want to send their children, they should try and accommodate them as well within the, within the way that they plan out the academic session.
So, Dr. Amita Vatal, you heard this little girl, and she's saying she, of course, wants to go back to her school friends, her classmates, but she also realizes the risk. So, do you think that this also reflects the fact about social development, social skills that are getting hampered with these young children who are not able to meet in social gatherings, especially with the peers of their age group?
Absolutely, because I think firstly parents have to accept that it's not as though children are locked up in the home. They're all going out. They're going to malls and restaurants, and they're going out to vacations and resorts and to the airport, which are far more busier and far more infectious areas than a school would be. And I think a parent has to come to terms with the fact that the pandemic is here to stay, maybe not at such a robust level as it is showing. And we cannot just keep children out of school out of fear.
Yes.
All over the world, young children, primary, middle, senior school students are going to school, and everybody works in a bubble. If a child goes to a school, if something happens and the school closes down, then again reopens after a week. We have to carry on like this. Otherwise, we'll have a complete generation of uneducated children, and that will become very difficult for them to get jobs as they grow older, because it's a much greater impact. Because if they're going to lose out these years of learning, 2, 3, 4 years that we have, and these are very essential years where learning happens in a very deep and internalized manner. So I think it's essential that parents have to understand that they'll be doing a big disservice to the children by not sending them to schools.
Let me now bring in another parent and her child as well. Meenakshi Narula also now joins me. Meenakshi, do you think it is time for you to send your child back to school? It's been over a year now. They've been restricted to their houses. They are missing on essential years with their friends. What do you have to say?
I would like to say it's really very important to send our children to school, taking all precautionary measures. But it is really very important because they are not following the proper routine as they earlier used to.
So let me end this discussion with a question to Dr. Vatal, because you've been an experienced academician. Do you think the government must right away consider and should make a statement, specifically Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal? Should that announcement be expected anytime soon, according to you?
I've always found that the Deputy CM has a lot of wisdom as far as schooling and children are concerned, and I'm convinced that if not later but sooner, he will definitely make an announcement, because I think thousands of lives, learning lives of children are at stake in Delhi. It's the capital city. There's so many opportunities being lost, and the world watches the capital. The country watches the capital. So we can't send these messages down of children not opening schools. It is of schools not being opened. I'm sure that in his wisdom, he will definitely give an announcement soon that children should come back to school.
So some very good points made there, and I want to thank all my panelists for your views, for your perspective, and also letting me know about your fear and concerns. Thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to add here, I was contacted by so many parents who wanted to put their view across, but for the lack of time, we cannot include all. But this is an ongoing discussion, and I will ensure that on India Today, we'll have as many voices as we can possibly of parents and of teachers. And now in our continued telecast of how prepared the national capital, Delhi, or even the country is for COVID-19 and the battle against it, even while the vaccination drive is on, I now want to bring you a ground report, a status check. Is Delhi prepared? Are children safe in Delhi now with the vaccination that's also expected? My colleague Milan Sharma with this ground report from Delhi.
India is bracing for a third wave of COVID, and what's worrying is that this time it may affect children too. State governments don't want to be caught on the wrong foot like it happened with adults in the second wave of the virus.
दिल्ली सरकार पूरी तैयारी कर रही है थर्ड वेव के लिए। इस बार हम 37,000 बेड्स के लिए इंतजाम कर रहे हैं, जिसमें 12,000 आईसीयू बेड रहेंगे ऑक्सीजन की भी पूरी तैयारी की जा रही है। तो हर तरीके से जो वेव पहले तो कहेंगे कि ना ही आए तो अच्छी बात है, अगर आती भी है तो उसकी तैयारी की जा रही है।
Inside Delhi's dedicated children's hospital, the Chacha Nehru Bal Chikitsalaya, all beds have been equipped with oxygen facility.
हमें जिम्मेवारी दी गई है कि 220 बेड से हम 250 बेड करें। उसकी तैयारी बाखूबी चल रही है और मुझे लगता है कि एक हफ्ते के अंदर हम 250 बेड्स जो है टोटल हो जाएंगे।
The hospital has kept a backup stock of oxygen cylinders. The PSA oxygen plant has also been installed.
एक अलॉटमेंट सिस्टम करने जा रहे हैं जिसमें हम 2 या 3 बच्चों पे एक ह्यूमन बीइंग एनओ जो है लेवल का आदमी रहेगा, सो दैट पल की जो है ऑब्जर्वेशन वो आगे रेजिडेंट को और रेजिडेंट आगे कंसल्टेंट को दे सकें।
For those in the medical care sector, there is reason to be concerned. At least 60% children are still vulnerable to COVID infections after the first and the second wave hit India. Until such time that they are vaccinated, the threat will always be high.
The central government's report says that existing pediatric facilities need to be very robust in order to help children sail through the third wave if they are infected. But special care is also being given in hospitals for comorbid children, as it is being said that they are at the most vulnerable point of getting infected during the third wave. Even as the central government says, 20% of all beds in hospitals should be allocated for children. In children-specific hospitals, the preparations are on to make sure that children are safe and they recover well if infected in the third wave. With Ashok Banot, this is Milan Sharma in New Delhi for India Today.
That's all from me for today on the COVID telecast.